Hello, Garland Nixon. I am back, plenty to talk about, and I'm going to do an update. Of course, you know the three areas of concern: kinetic warfare, media narrative, and last but not least, economic war of attrition. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here. Been out of town, but I am back and we're going to do an update. It is the 5th of July. So let's hit the three areas of concern. And, I'm not the guy that does the, okay, the Russians gained X amount of meters in this particular town that I can't pronounce. And there was an artillery battle in this area and blah, blah, blah. I don't understand that stuff as well, not being a military man, but I can talk about this thing in general where we are. Let's start with the kinetic warfare. Kinetic warfare, antiwar.com. Putin declares victory in Ukraine's eastern Luhansk region. Of course, there's in the Donbass region, the two main oblast big areas, Luhansk region, and that is about the size of Massachusetts, about the size of Belgium. Think about that. When people talk about these battles and these what have you, and somebody taking taking an area in eastern Ukraine, you got to understand that Ukraine is a very, very large country. It's about the size of, I think, Texas, something like that, which is huge. So at any rate, it's a large country. I think about 40 million people there in the country. And again, the Luhansk area is about the size of Massachusetts, about the size of Belgium. So basically, effectively, you may say that the Russian military has taken a area the size of Belgium. Here's the thing to think about this too. We're not talking about you just walk up into a town and the other people run out. That is happening more and more now, but they've had to fight. A lot of this has been house to house, building to building, as particularly earlier. It seems now the Ukrainian army is very beaten down. They're running out of soldiers, a lot of deaths, a lot of injuries, and it seems they seem to be retreating much faster now. That, for instance, Lysychansk, apparently the Russians approached. They came in. There was some fighting, but a large number of the Ukrainian soldiers simply left, abandoned their tanks, abandoned everything. It seems to me that, one of the things that I've said for a while is that I expect at some point some form of collapse of a military and or economic collapse. And I feel like that's kind of what we're getting. We're getting some level of a military and or economic collapse. I mean, political collapse. The economic collapse has already happened for Ukraine. So, the main part of eastern Ukraine where a large number of Russian-speaking people lived was Donbass, was Donetsk and Lugansk. And Lugansk is apparently, did I say Luhansk? Lugansk is apparently fallen completely into Russian hands. Let me say this about one of the things that I find interesting here is that the narrative, is that Russia has invaded Ukraine. These poor Ukrainians are fighting back. It leaves out some of the nuances. Number one, a significant portion of the people in Ukraine are actually of Russian ethnicity, heritage, cultural, ethnic, etc. And particularly in the Donbass region, in Lugansk and Donetsk. And that's the reason that there was a ongoing civil war, because these people were fighting back. So the odd thing is that there were Ukrainians from Western Ukraine who were in Eastern Ukraine fighting to hold the Russians off. But the people in Eastern Ukraine wanted the Russians to come in. The people who lived there was like, yay, the Russians are here to liberate us from these maggots. And the people from Western Ukraine is like, well, yay, we got to protect this area so that the Russians can't take it. So there was, most Americans have no idea about that That there was actually a civil war going on in Ukraine, and that these areas, the people that live there consider themselves liberated rather than being that the land was taken. They consider themselves liberated from the Ukrainian, Western Ukraine and the far right. Okay, so the bottom line is this: as you probably know, if we talk about the kinetic war, for some period of time, and this is going to bleed into the narrative, for some period of time, the Western media has been taking the position that taking the position that the Russians were losing, that the Russians were going to get beaten, that these tough little gritty Ukrainians were standing up against the mighty Russian army, and that was never true. It was never true. The Ukrainians never had a chance. Did they get a tactical win every now and then? Sure, it's a huge area, and they've got a large, well-equipped and well-trained military. And at times, they got some wins in a tactical fight here and there. But overall, and the Russian military had a plan, and they just plodded away on their plan. And it was fairly obvious, if you listen to me, if you listen to a lot of people who talked about this, who were fairly, when it came to the military aspect of this, that were just trying to report on the facts on the ground, it was always obvious, as I put it, this was Bambi versus Godzilla from the very beginning. This was the powerful Russian army, and this is not to be taken lightly right here, what I'm about to say. Keep in mind something: the Russian military, everything about the Russian military is designed to protect its eastern border. It's not designed. People are like, the Russians only have one aircraft carrier, and that's out of business. That's not in service. You know why? Because they don't want an aircraft carrier, because an aircraft carrier is designed to project your power around the world. The Russians military was designed a very, very powerful military. Do not underestimate the power of the Russian military in its area of concern, which is within probably 500 to 1,000 kilometers of the Russian border. They were designed to protect the Russian border. Everything about the Russian military is set to protect the Russian border. Okay, and that they're good at. So from the very beginning, when this was set up, that Ukraine was going to war with Russia on the Russian border, where the Russian military is completely set up to fight, they never had a chance. And in fact, the Russians put an expeditionary force in there, which is, I've heard numbers anywhere from 10 to 30% of their military might, which, let's go with half of that, 15. Let's go with a little bit more, 20. That's 1/5 of their military might against the Ukrainian military, and they're just, it always was going to be over, but it was just a matter of how they do it. And I think part of it, and since we're talking about the military, was this: I think the Russians didn't want to do what the NATO and the US tends to do, which is come in and bomb a city flat and then come in and then claim the remains, right? Instead, they wanted to come in and do house date them. I mean, this is dirty fighting, man. This is bad business. House to house, building for building. People don't want to fight like that. But they came in to take that and to actually take the towns and villages and hold them. If you just go bomb or whatever, or you go take a hill or you go take an area, you leave, they take it back. This was to take and hold ground. That's what the Russian military was set up to do. They took their time. I think that's why they're moving slow, and they're taking territory, and they ain't giving it up. So that's why this is a different kind of war. It's a war that's house to house, ground to ground, because when they take a town, that town is fully, as they see it, liberated, which means it's theirs now and it ain't going back. So they do house to house, ground fighting. Okay, so let's continue. So what we're looking at with the Ukrainian military now, it has become very, very obvious what this is. And that is, let me show you something that makes it obvious. Let me find this. Here we go. Here we go. So the bottom line is this. What is this about? Because we're talking about this fighting. What's going on here? I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to share screen on you. There are, by the umpteen tens of thousands, Ukrainians dying, just being wiped out, slaughtered. They're put out on the field. That artillery's rained on them. The number of dead is unthinkable. It's really a horrific thing going on, right? But let's look at this. One of a guy named Brian Deese. Brian Deese is one of Biden's neocon warmonger advisors. But where did he come from? The guy he was one of the principal people at BlackRock. BlackRock, one of the largest crooked money management firms on earth, probably the largest. BlackRock, controls trillions and trillions of dollars in assets. So this guy was real scum. And what does he say? And he's one, of course, he's one of Biden's advisors because Biden's real scum. And look what he says. High gas prices are worth it for the future of liberal world order, White House economic advisors. White House economic advisor Brian Deese suggested the pain at the pump was the price Americans had to pay for the future of the liberal world order. A guy said to him, he asked Deese how the White House would respond to Americans worried that they won't be able to survive paying close to over $5 a gallon, potentially for years to come, right? So they're asking a guy from BlackRock, a neocon from BlackRock, what about the average consumer? What about the average person? Well, first of all, he could give a damn about the average person. But what does he say? Deese responded, what you heard from the president today was a clear articulation of the stakes. This is about the future of the liberal world order, and we have to stand firm. Now, think about this. If this is about the future of the liberal world order, then why did you tell us? Why did you tell us this is about a democracy? Why did you tell us this is about an independent sovereign nation? Well, wait a minute. It's about democracy. It's about independent. He told the truth. And that is, these people are freaking nuts. We're dealing with people who are fascists. The liberal world order. Let me explain what that means when he says that. The rules-based international order, all the same thing. What do they mean? Why do they keep using this word order, right? They're using this word order because what they mean is how the world is set up. And in particularly, the rules-based international order or the liberal world order means, who's saying it? Liberals. Liberals are saying this, right? And the new kind of liberal, the fascist liberal, right, is saying it, right? And the fascist liberal is basically saying this. I don't care how much Ukrainian blood we shed. Who gives a shit? This isn't about them. Their job is to die. They're like mice to us. Like if you got a boa constrictor, or like if you've got a fish, like let's say you've got a bass in an aquarium, and you get you buy those feeder fish, minnows, and you throw them in there for the bass to eat. That's what the Ukrainian lives are to him. As far as us suffering, we're the same thing. We mean nothing to him. The liberal world order means we, meaning him, run everything, and everybody does what we tell them to do. They are basically the rules-based international order. The liberal world order is the mask. It is the fraud. It is to hide what's behind it. These are words, liberal. These are euphemisms to really mean greed, lies, murder, theft. They go around the world. They're greedy. They steal the resources of other countries. They lie to the world. They lie to the American people. They steal the resources. That's what the liberal. It's a world order wherein the neocons and oligarchical thieves who run the U.S. and Germany, and the powerful people from Europe and the U.S. right, the U.S. empire, do whatever they want in the world, and everybody else has to march to their their tune. And the bottom line is the Russians are saying no, we're not going to do it. So the problem that Brian Deese has is that they feel like the Ukraine war, the kinetic war on the ground, right? This confrontation is a fight to hold on to the liberal world order, the rules-based international order, when it's something far different. What it is an indication that liberal world order is over. There's no way to save it. There's no way. You see, here's the thing about it. When the second Russia went to war with Ukraine, it was over. Ukraine's never going to win that. So what happens? So the US empire stakes everything behind it. We're going to give them money. We're going to give them information. We're going to give them data from our satellites. We're going to give them weapons. We're going to give them everything. And they're going to lose anyway because they can't win this. They never could. They never had a chance. Ever. So what that was an indication. There's been several indications. I'll give you another indication. Another indicator was when the U.S. tried to overthrow Syria, and the Russians sent their people in, and they worked with the Iranians and Hezbollah and the whole Shiite group, and they stopped the U.S. from overthrowing Syria. That was an indicator. I'll give you another indicator. Another indicator is when the U.S. Killed Soleimani, and the Iranians fired ballistic missiles and blew the hell out of a couple of U.S. bases. When Israel, did something, I forgot what it was, blew up something in Iran, or in Syria that the Iranians didn't like, and the Iranians blew up a damn Israeli Mossad base that was on a U.S. base in Erbil in Iraq, and the U.S. and Israel did nothing. So these are indicators that other people will punch back and you won't do anything. Another indicator is hypersonic missiles. When Russia developed the Kinzhal, the Zircon, these hypersonic missiles that they have, at that point, your carrier groups become irrelevant. That's how you project your power. But there is no current defense for hypersonic missiles, which means if you bring those carrier groups within range, which is like 1,900 kilometers, was that maybe 1,400 miles? You can't come within 1,400 miles of a Russian sub or a Russian ship or a Russian ground-based missile battery, 1,400 miles, or you're done. Now, what happens? Russia can launch them from planes that have like a couple 1,000-mile range. So they can come to you. So the bottom line, these are all indicators that order where they tell everybody what to do and everybody says yes is over. So this kinetic war, the current state of it is clear. Russia is winning, and the U.S. empire is trying to figure out how to react. I think part of it was this: a totally incompetent, inept, and ideological government, media, and intelligence community that the U.S. empire controls. And so what they do is, I heard Larry Johnson talking, and Larry Johnson said, when he was in the CIA, and I've heard other CIA people say this, that they said, yeah, we sent write up some stuff to go to the White House, and we're told the White House ain't going to like this. But it's the truth. Well, now I don't think it goes that way. I don't think they send them the truth. I think when they send the White House what they want, and so they've all got people together to believe what I believe they come together. The only area I think where there's some level of dissent to say this isn't true is at the Pentagon. But the rest of this machine all got themselves convinced, yeah, the Russians are going to lose. And that's why the term I use is collapse. I've used that term over and over again, because the way this thing ends, in a way, is, you can call it end or just say this is an ongoing event. But the way this Ukrainian thing results is, I believe, collapse. It's not going to be, the Russians don't trust the West enough to make a deal with them. And you're not going to fight them till you're already so far in a corner that you need a deal, and then say to the Russians, we need a deal. And the Biden administration is incapable of making a deal, because they will never, ever accept that they don't have the high ground. So they'll go to the Russians and they'll say, we want a deal. The Russians will say, what's the deal? You give us everything we want and shut up, and we'll accept that. That's the only kind of deal that neocons can make, because they're they're malignant narcissists, and a malignant narcissist always feels that they have the upper ground and that the people should do what they say. So bottom line is, there ain't no deal happening. The way this thing continues is the Russians continue to win. The Ukrainians continue to get slaughtered until at some point, I'm reading now that the Ukrainians are now saying no men can leave between 18 and 60. And now they're starting to say no women either. So now the Ukrainians are starting to say, we're going to take women who've never fired a gun and put them out on the battlefield to catch shrapnel with artilleries. How, if I'm the president of the United States, that's where I draw the line. I say, look, we may be evil neocons, but I'm not going to throw these young girls, 18, 19, 20-year-old girls who are not capable of defending themselves physically not capable, never fired a weapon, they don't know nothing about laying in a trench firing at, come on, really? You've got these Russian soldiers, big powerful guys, Spetsnaz coming in there firing everything. The people there are getting routed and slaughtered now, and you're going to put women on the battlefield? At this point, you're just throwing bodies out there to be slaughtered. But that's where Ukraine is. Ukraine is at a point where the U.S. empire, which control a complete amoral group of psychopathic neocons, are simply saying they're in charge of Ukraine. They're like, oh, people kill me. Zelensky's doing this. Zelensky's doing nothing. Nothing. He ain't involved in the decision making. He is a lifelong actor, and he is acting now. If you talk about Zelensky making a deal, well, I think Zelensky should make a deal. Well, then you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about. If you're talking about Zelensky making a deal with someone, then you need to do something else, because understanding geopolitics ain't your field. Zelensky has no power. He's nothing but a puppet, nothing more, nothing less. So the U.S. military is simply saying, we need more Ukrainian lives. We need to keep this going as long as we can. And how do we do that? We just keep throwing bodies out there. Well, I will run out sooner or later, but as long as we got Ukrainian bodies, and when they say we're running out of men, well, what do you have? Do you have women? Yeah. Well, what are you standing there looking at me for? If Zelensky says we're running out of men, okay, well, this war's got to keep coming. We need bodies to die. Well, all we got is women. What are you standing there for? What are you still talking to me for? You're burning sunlight. Go get those women, put them in the uniform or something close to it, throw them on a battlefield so they can die. We need to keep this thing going on. It's inexcusable. That's where we are right now. They're running out of bodies, but they're trying to drag it out as long as possible. So if I sum up where we are in Ukraine right now, the Russians are continuing to take anything they want to take. And they're going to continue to do that. And the Ukraine is running out of bodies. And the amoral psychopaths are saying to the Ukrainians, if you're out of men, women. I guess if you run out of women, next you go to children. What do you got? Some toddlers? Yeah, put a gun in their hand and send them out there. They can catch shrapnel. They can die like the next man. Maybe the Russians will trip over them or something when they're running. Just tell them it's a toy gun and point it to. Just put them in a uniform. So at least the Russians will think somebody's there. And then as the Russians slaughter and mangle the bodies of toddlers, that's where they are. That's where the Biden administration is. Throw any Ukrainian body. That's why this guy said the rules. This is about the liberal rules-based order. It sure ain't hell ain't about the lives of the Ukrainians, because they are just like you and me, just like all Americans, all Brits. We're the same. If you think that a psychopath cares any more about your life and my life and the life of the American people than they do about the lives of the Ukrainian people, you are sadly mistaken. If you're in England, if you're in Germany, if you think Olaf Scholz or Bojo, if you think they care any more about your life than they do about the lives of the Ukrainian people, you are in error. We are all cannon fodder. Now, with us right now, we are economic cannon fodder. There I move on to my next. Listen to this. Let's go here. Let's look. Let's go to the economic part of this. Biden tells Americans angry about high gas prices they'll have to pay up as long as it takes to defeat Putin in Ukraine. Do you notice a pattern here from the Biden administration? You notice a pattern here. And here's the pattern. Oh, let's go here. Let's look here. That ain't enough. Ukraine war. The price of freedom is worth paying, says Boris Johnson. The price of freedom is worth paying. Likening the conflict to defeating Nazi Germany in World War II, the PM said the war had been very expensive but delivered long-term stability. Right? As his country falls apart, he's going to be out soon. His country is falling apart. Joe Biden's country is falling apart. Here's the part you got to understand. In the same way that they're feeding Ukrainian bodies into this neocon mulch machine to be mulched to hell. They're feeding the economic lives of us, the average regular people, and our children and our children's future into the same machine. It's the same thing. Hey, we want the liberal world order. In other words, rich people like them and far richer want to maintain power over everything which they've already lost. And in order to do that, they're willing to sacrifice. Oh, basically, if you think about it, we're going to do it. Biden saying we'll do it as long as it takes to defeat Putin. Well, they ain't going to defeat Putin, but that's beside the point. What he's really saying is, I don't give a shit about these people. I don't care. As long as it takes. Well, the Americans are suffering. Well, that they just going to have to suffer as long as it takes to until we have done, till me and people like me can keep power and maintain power over the world and do anything we want anywhere we want. And they're just going to have to suffer. That's their jobs. They're serfs. That's what serfs are supposed to do. He makes it clear. And it's something you have to understand about the neocons. That's why when people say, yay, the Republicans are coming in November, they ain't worth a shit. They are controlled by the neocons too. The only difference they'll say is, look, what kind of opposition do you have from the Republicans right now? What kind of opposition do you have from them? The Republicans, they all voted with 3 or 4 or 5 of them. They all voted to send the $40 billion to Ukraine. They are on board with Biden. Yay, let's do this. You got a tiny handful of them who are opposing it, and people who really want to believe that one of these parties is different. People who really want to fool themselves into believing that one of these parties is not a brainwashed cult. Says, well, I found 5 Republicans that voted against it. Therefore, the Republican Party is a better party than the Democrats, really. 95% of the people in this, 100% of this people in this party support an insane war. 95% of the people in the other party support it. And you think one of these you think 95% is going to get you somewhere. It's absurd. And the only ones that don't, it's because they want war with China. And if you think the economic ramifications of war with Russia, of this a proxy war with Russia are bad, a proxy war with China will make this seem like the biggest economic boom you've ever seen in your life. So what the Republicans are looking at the Democrats, and all they're saying is, what the Democrats are doing is stupid, but you ain't seen nothing yet. We're going to show you think you've seen stupid. You think you've seen high gas prices. When we get finished with it, you won't find a thing on the shelf. Walmart, Amazon, I don't care where you go, they're all closed when we get finished with it. That's what you're looking at with these two parties. I feel sorry for people who believe that the Republican Party is going to come in and like somehow fix this whole thing. Or, of course, so let me add this. Some of the Republicans are so brainwashed that they're just a cult, that they're just like, yeah, everything that Joe Biden has said about Russia is a lie. Well, what about the things that they're saying about China? Well, now Joe Biden telling the truth about China. They really are a threat. So Joe Biden's a madman. He's a psychotic, insane person, and he's a warmongering fruitcake, and he's going to kill us all. But he's right about China. That tells you where the Republican Party is. That tells you where some of these idiots are. It's not that they're opposed to the neocon empire going around the world and screwing everything up. It's just that they want to do it to China, not Russia. So I have no respect for either of these parties because it's really one. Okay, let's continue to move on. So what we're talking about is the economic version. So here's the bottom line. Let's sum it up. There are, very early in the campaign, shall we say, the military conflict, the crisis. I like that word. One of the things that I said that a number of people said, I did a Saturday with Dan Lazar, we talked about it, and that is it's going to be a hot summer because these people have declared an economic war of attrition against Russia, and they need Russia bad. And think about how stupid this was. The European Union cannot have an economy without Russian energy. That just can't happen. They really can't eat without Russian agricultural products, right? Without Russian agricultural products, they starve. Without Russian energy, they starve in poverty and they freeze. And these morons declared economic war on Russia. I think what we're seeing now with Russia is this: they're throwing some elbows. In case you hadn't update a little update on the economic war. One of the things that's going on now is that Russia is they've cut back the gas flow to Europe. I believe, again, I'm going to tell you when I'm speculating. I believe that they cut back on the economic gas war for this reason. They said everyone. I mean, they cut back on the amount of gas going to Europe for this reason. They said all unfriendly countries have to buy gas in rubles. A number of the countries, such as Poland and some other countries, said we're not going to do it. We will not do it. But they need Russian gas. So what do? Germany buys more than they need. And now they buy gas from Germany. They're still buying Russian gas, but they're buying it from Germany. They're not buying it in rubles from Russia. But Germany has to have enough excess gas to sell it to them, doesn't it? So Russia cuts back on Germany's gas, and now Germany barely has enough for themselves, much less any to send to these other countries that need it and that don't want to pay for it in rubles. Now that's number one. Number two, maybe I'm wrong. I think that the Russians are starting firing back on the economic war. You know, it's funny. The Germans are all up in arms. I can't believe the Russians are cutting back on our gas. They're cutting back on our gas. This is economic war. That's what they said. This is economic war and economic terrorism. Wait a minute. You said that you're going to destroy the Russian economy. You're going to make the Russian economy scream. France, the prime minister, the economic minister of France said, we have declared war on the Russian economy, economically, right? Okay, you declare war on them, and you start taking pot shots at them, and you sanction after sanction after sanction after sanction. Fine, you think they're never going to strike back? You need them. You are lucky that is Vladimir Putin as the president of Russia and not Garland Nixon, because I'd have cut your ass off very early in the game. But and a lot of people would, probably a lot of people in Russia that would have said, "Oh, you declare economic war on me? Well, then fine, you're cut off." But they didn't. And in a way, it's smart. Think about this: if a sucker's going to give you your money, his money, take his money. So what the Russia's done now is, and they even talked about it. They said, "Look, the price of gas is through the roof. We can sell you less gas than we said, which preserves more of their gas for the long run. They can sell you less gas and make more money because the price is up so much. And in fact, when they cut them back more, the price went up again. So the more you squeeze them, the more price goes up, the more money you make. Now, the Russians have said that in July, they've got to do some maintenance on, they're going to cut the Germans off for 10 days, complete cut them off. Nothing's coming, no gas. And the Germans are concerned of whether the Russians will ever turn them back on. Well, one of the things I can tell you is going on, and this is all part of the economic war, and the Russians were ahead of this. They're building a pipeline to China called the Power of Siberia pipeline, which is going to, as I understand it, it's going to take about as much gas as goes to Europe, and they're going to send it to China. I suspect, but last I heard, I don't know when that's done. I'd heard 2025, 2026, whatever the case may be. That ain't far off. My suspicion is, and I know you know what I'm about to say, don't you? My suspicion is that the damn idiot Europeans are saying constantly to the Russians, "We're going to cut you off. We're going to cut you off. You just wait. We're going to cut you off." But then they'll go back and say, "But we can't cut them off because we don't have the gas. But we're going to cut you off, you sons of bitches. You just wait." I suspect the Russians aren't doing a lot of talking. Beware the fury of a patient man, right? It's like a dog that doesn't bark. There's certain dogs that don't bark. They just walk up and bite you, right? I suspect what the Russians are saying is, we're setting ourselves up. We're going to give you a little bit of gas. You're going to suffer like hell because we ain't giving you the amount you need. And you wait till next winter. We got something for your ass. But what they're saying is this: "Oh, you're going to cut us off. But you can't cut us off. But you can't wait to cut us off. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. When that Power of Siberia pipeline comes on, you're going to get a call from us. And it's going to be, we don't need you anymore. I know you want to cut us off. I know you hate our guts. You can't stand us. You don't want to do business with it. We're going to make it easy on you. You don't have to cut us off. I've told this story plenty of times. When I was a very young man, I had a girl. I really liked her. And she said to me one time, hadn't been dating her for so long. And I thought the world of her. And she was a good looking girl, right? And I'm like, oh man, I'm good here. Man, this is good to go, right? And she made a mistake of saying to me, I can't decide, I have an ex-boyfriend who I want, you or your ex-boyfriend. I say, you just made your decision. I'm out because I ain't playing any money, both stuff. Right. So here's the bottom line. That's what's happening. At some point, they're going to be like, well, we're keeping you around, Russia, but we don't really want to. And we're trying to find a way to get rid of you. At some point, the Russians are going to say, you made your decision. We're going to make this thing easy for you. Adios. We're selling our gas to Siberia. Don't need you. Click. And all that big talk about how they're going to get rid of the Russians is going to blow up in their faces. But the Russians are pissed. They ain't happy. And I just don't understand, to be quite frank, how you can have the Germans have already said, if Russian gas is gone, that's it for Germany. Our economy is gone, our industry is gone, and it will never come back. It's all over. We will be a third-rate, backwater, hellhole, dystopian piece of shit country if they cut us off. And that is surely coming. There's no question that's coming. The only matter is when. So if I had money invested in German industry right now, I would try to find a way to invest otherwise, because I don't know when. I don't know if it's going to be this month, this winter, or 2025, or whenever the power of Siberia opens. But the day is coming when they ain't getting no more Russian gas. I just can't predict when, but I will guarantee you that day is coming. That Europe is going to be on its own. And when it is, I guess they'll be back to the hunter-gatherer days. They'll figure a way to survive, or they won't. They'll be burning wood. They'll be burning furniture. There ain't no way out for them. The United States has dragged them into an economic war of attrition with the country that they cannot survive economically without. And they have sent weapons, and they have pretty much declared an unofficial war. NATO, which is nothing but an umbrella organization, so that the United States can bring all of the countries in Europe together and take power of attorney for their foreign policy. But these NATO countries in Europe need Russian. They were surviving. They were competitive on the world stage because they had cheap energy from Russia. And the U.S. has said, you ain't getting, no, it's over. Your economies are over. It's all over. You can't operate off of cheap Russian energy anymore. We want to be in control of you. So no, you can't do that, which is the end for all of Europe. Now, of course, so that's where we are. It's over for Europe. Dead is over. Man, I wouldn't want to be there in another year. I would not want to be in Europe, in Germany particularly, but in Europe, in Northern Europe. I to hell wouldn't want to be there next winter. They're going to be in a food crisis. They're going to be in a damn depression, and they will be. What are you going to do? You're out of power. They will have to come crawling to the Russians. They're not going to be able to run their power stations. And like I said, be glad that I ain't in charge, because you'd come begging me. You'd say, look, we've been in error. Our people are freezing. I don't know what we're going to do. Can we strike a deal? I'd say, a deal? We already struck a deal. The deal is you kiss my ass. And I'll give you, and you got to give me 3 hours to draw a crowd, and you still ain't getting no gas. You declared war on me. I didn't declare war on you. You threw the punches. I told you I didn't want trouble. And you didn't. So now, look, you can choose your actions, but you can't choose the consequences of your actions. They have chosen to follow the United States. I suspect that the time will come when you will see governments in Europe. Look, Bojo is toast right now. You've got his ministers are starting to resign. Now, they're claiming it's because he's a bad guy and all of this corruption. That ain't what it's about. It's because the people are getting furious over the economic situation. The government of Latvia has fallen. The government of Bulgaria has fallen. Olaf Scholz ain't long for this world politically. So politically speaking, the Biden administration is, I mean, don't even think about getting in November, because they're wiped out beyond anything. They're, I mean, biblical proportion wiped out. But the Biden administration is done here, and you're going to see government after government after government fall in Europe. One of the problems that you have in Europe is the same problem that you have here that I was talking about, and that's this: the oligarchs have so taken over this country that they own both parties. So when Biden goes, then in comes the new brainwash cult, and they want the same thing. Okay, we hate this thing with Ukraine. We want the Republicans to come in. They're going to come in with bullshit. Hey, you're going to do anything about Ukraine? No, 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 no. Forget that. We're on the right track when it comes to Ukraine. All the Republicans are going to say is we need to pump more oil from the oil fields. That's it. That's going to be, yes, we need it, which is what they want to do anyway. The only thing they're going to do is come in with a list of things that they want. They want to cut Social Security. They want to cut Medicare. They want to cut what they call as entitlements, but the social safety net. So the Republicans are going to come in and they say, okay, the country's going to hell. We got a plan. What is that? It's the same plan we always have. We're going to cut the social safety net, and we're going to pump more oil, and all will be well. The truth is, if the Republicans came to power and everything was perfect, if the economy was perfect and we were totally at peace and everything was wonderful, the Republicans would say, okay, great, perfect time to cut the social safety net and to pump more oil out of our oil fields. But since everything's gone to hell, we've got a solution. What is it? We're going to get rid of the social safety net and we're going to pump more. They're going to do it. Oh, did I leave out more tax cuts for corporations and rich? You got to do that. There's only a couple of hands that they play. So poor suckers and fools think that this brainwashed a billionaire-owned cult is going to come in and do something far different than the other brainwashed billionaire cult and somehow help the working class. Oh my God, I feel sorry for those people, but they'll find out. They'll find out. All right, let's continue. That's what the problem you have in Europe. What do you think? Keir Starmer and the Labor Party is going to turn things around? He's going to be the second coming of FDR, for God's sake, or something? No. They're going to come in and you're going to say, all righty now, Bojo's gone. What do we do now? We need to send more weapons to Ukraine. And they're going to come. Whoever comes in is going to give you the same thing. Not even a different flavor of it. At least we get a different flavor of it here. You ain't even get a different flavor of it. We got blue warmongering oligarch-owned puppet parties, and then we go to the red oligarch-owned warmongering puppet party. You guys don't even get that much. You get the same damn thing. So that's the UK is totally screwed, as are we. But let me say this. Let me say one thing about the US. The US is similar to Russia, and here's what I mean. Russia can create their own energy. They make their own stuff. They got factories. They're actually better off than we are. They got more factories. They make a lot of their own stuff. They can grow their own food, right? So they can survive. The United States can grow its own food. We can survive. The United States can create its own energy. We can survive. Times will get hard, but the US can make it, right? But the EU can't do neither one of those things. So the EU is done. And Russia has the whole world behind it. Is Russia going to be okay? Well, let's see. All of South America supports them. All of Africa supports them. Most of Asia supports them. Eurasia, India supports them. China supports them. Yeah, they're going to be all right. They can get what they need. The U.S. does nothing for Europe. The only thing the U.S. is going to do for Europe is extract money for them. When these goons and ghouls that run this country sees Europe down, they'll kick them. When they see them down, what does a wolf do when he's going behind a pack of deer? The smallest, weakest deer, those are the ones that the wolves grab and eat first because they're easy. When the U.S. sees the EU weak, you think the U.S. is going to say, I got to help them? No, they're going to say, oh boy, they're weak now. Let's go in and take all their shit once and for all. Let's take their companies. Let's take their industry. Let's take anything they got. We're going to take it. You in Europe are going to find out what the rest of the world found out about the U.S. and the neoliberals and the neocons. If they see you weak, they don't have friends. They're going to take your stuff. They're going to leave you lying on the ground, starving and freezing. And then you know what they're going to do? They're going to blame you. They're going to say, well, if you people weren't so lazy, if you didn't just pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, you could do something. But I can't understand those lazy Europeans. It's falling apart because the European culture is just weak. Unlike the U.S. culture, they don't have a good, strong work ethic. They're going to wipe you out. with their policy. They're going to sacrifice you to the neocon God of the liberal world order, and then they're going to blame you for your plight. That's what the U.S. neocons do, and that's what they're going to do. That's what the EU has coming in. All these people running around with their blue and yellow freaking flags in the EU. Oh, we hate the Russians. The Russians must be stopped. What you've done is you have taught the Russians for the last time, they're going to learn this lesson again, that you have what could be considered a racist type view. They hate the Russians with a racist ethnic hatred. And the Russians get it. And the Russians ain't coming back no more. The Russians are going to divorce themselves from you guys once and for all. The Russians are going to say, well, you know what? Isn't it interesting? The yellow people in China and Asia, they all like us. The black people in Africa like us. The brown people in South America like us. We're all good friends with, in Latin America, we're friends with us. But for some reason, the Americans and the Europeans hate our guts. You know what? We'll make ourselves official brown people and we'll hang with all the people of color. That's what they're doing. That's what the Russians are doing. They're turning to the world of Chinese and Eurasian and African and all of that stuff, the people that are willing to accept them and say, hey, look, we've been screwed over by the US too, man. Hey, come on, let's all be friends. And they will get support from there and they will build from there. And that's what they realize there's nothing for them in Europe because the US empire is in charge of Europe. There is no Europe. There's just an appendages. There's just colonies of the US empire. The US empire hates Russia. The US empire wants to steal all of Russia's shit. And they want to do the same thing to China. And so the bottom line is the Russia's out of there. So economically, stick a fork, turn Europe over and stick a fork in it. It's done. No way out for Europe for this. No way out. I do think, though, let me say this. I do think that if the Europeans get to the point where they completely turn things over and they kill neoliberalism, they stick a knife in the heart of neoliberalism and neoconservatism, and they say we're going to bring in a whole new crop, that they just turn their governments over and bring in a crop of people who are realists, who are willing to say, don't get me wrong, I don't think the Russians will ever trust them again, and the Russians will not economically link with them again. But I do think the Russians will do business with them. But they're going to have to get rid of these von der Leyen Nazis and all of these other people. And as long as Europe is nothing but a bunch of colonies and a proxy, a sword, the tip of the sword to poke Russia, yeah, Russia is done with them. And China ain't far behind. They're going to take their money as much as they can take it. And at some point, Russia's cutting them loose completely. So the economic war of attrition is set. Europe is feeling the pain, and here's the sad thing: Europe is feeling some pain, and that pain ain't even started yet. And when that pain gets really, really bad, see, here's the sad thing: when they need Russia most is the winter. And I do think, in a way, because Russians are very patient people. It's very patient and kind of bureaucratic. Society, right? That the Russians are thinking things through, saying they're going to be at their weakest in the winter. They're going to need our gas in the winter. We're going to keep going what we're doing. You notice one of the things that has been said by very high-ranking Russians is we expect this thing to last a year, which means dead winter. Let's say to the end of the year. So let's say in December, dead cold friggin' winter in Northern Europe, right? The Russians finish this thing up. If it's any time to be bargaining in a winter, when they need the Russians, they're going to have to beg the Russians for gas. And, as Richard Nixon said, you negotiate with your adversary when they're laying on the ground and you have your foot on their neck. That's going to be next winter. They'll be Europe will be laying on the ground. The Russians will have their collective feet on the necks of them economically. And I think that's when the Russians will be ready to bargain. But they ain't never going to bargain. They're going to. But let me change that. They'll be ready to at least work on these things, maybe some economic deals. But then when it comes to Ukraine, there's no bargain to be done there. It's clear. I do think that this war doesn't make it till the end of the year, simply because the Ukrainian political and military system collapses before that happens. It collapses before that happens. So last but not least, we'll talk about the narrative. Well, you know what? The narrative, in reality, there's two ways. there's a narrative that's driven by the U.S. empire, by the Biden administration, and that narrative has always been preposterous, that somehow the Ukrainians would win, and they just spin whatever now. Now they're in a point where they're just on spin cycle. If something happens, they're literally saying that the entire Lugansk Oblast has been taken by the Russians. They've taken a section of Ukraine the size of Belgium, right? And they're saying, okay, now that that's happened, the Ukrainian military, the ones that ran for their lives and left all of their equipment there, got the hell out of there, barely, some of them escaped with their lives and a lot of them didn't. They now are in good shape because now they have a chance to go back and to regroup and to do an offensive. And they said, and the Russians said, now what we're going to do is we're going to let our soldiers chill out. We're going to bring some of them home. We're going to rest for a while, which is normal. I mean, look, they've been fighting for the last month. We're going to give them a week to rest, and then we're going to move again. So now the U.S.'s spin cycle machine is saying, yes, the Russians have taken so many losses that they've got to go and they've got to rest and regroup because they've been beaten so bad in their victory. So they lost as the Ukrainians have gotten to the point where they want to send young women and medium-aged women too, I guess. They want to send women to the front because they're running out of men. And the people left Lysychansk. The Ukrainian soldiers literally ran for their lives and left tanks and all kinds of military equipment behind because they couldn't do anything with it. They had to get out of there and die. And that is, and according to the spin cycle of the U.S. empire, that means that the Russians lost. And it puts the Ukrainians in a good situation because now they can get prepared for a counterattack. That, my friends, is a psychological operation for the American people and the British people and the Western people. That's all that is. That has nothing to do with the government, has nothing to do with reality, has nothing to do with Ukraine, has nothing to do with the fight. It is narrative. The American people are not going to support this much longer, which they aren't anyway, if they realize that we're sending all of this money and all of these things and they're suffering and Ukrainians are getting the living hell beat out of them anyway. They can't accept that. So what they have to do is keep lying to their people. The big lies here, the spin is not for the world. It's not for the Russians. It's not for the Ukrainians. They're living there dealing with reality. It's for the Americans and the Brits and the German people. So they'll be like, man, I can't afford, I don't have any food. I can't afford gas. I think my factory's going to be closed down. Well, hey, but at least the Ukrainians ran for their lives out of Lysychansk, so now they can regroup. None of it actually makes sense, but that's all they got. It's now the spin cycle has gone to desperation. And we're starting to also see more articles in the newspaper, more and more where they basically say, yeah, the Ukrainians are screwed. Yeah, they ain't doing so well. Oh, they're not well trained. I mean, think about this for a second. I mean, just logically speaking, this whole business about we're going to send them the latest equipment that's going to help them. I remember, and this was way back many, many years ago, when GPSs first came out. I had one of the early GPSs, right? This thing back then, it had just numbers on it, and you put in waypoints, and you could save waypoints, and it didn't have any maps, any overlay maps or anything like that. I was using it on a boat doing search and rescue on Chesapeake Bay, right? And I get trained on this thing, and I got trained on it, and eventually some of the people and it took a time, and eventually the people that got trained on GPS, because you had to put in the numbers and all waypoints and all that. And eventually we actually took a map of the Chesapeake Bay, and we put in waypoints, and we did our own overlay, and we drew our routes and things onto these maps. So we created what would eventually be on a GPS. That shit took a long time to learn how to properly use a GPS, when the GPS was actually plugging numbers into the electronic equipment. Using the electronics, we had radars back then, and then radars that would lock on things. This was early, radars that came out back then with different things, like you could anchor and you could set, let's say just a number, 10 miles around. And you could set so that if anything, let's say a ship or a boat started coming within that radar, let's say you go to sleep, a ship or something comes within that range, it'll start beeping and tell you things like that. So you had radar, you had all these things, electronics that you had to learn how to use. These things were not easy to learn how to use. You couldn't give me that equipment and say, Garland, I'm going to train you for a week and out you go to fight the Russians. I'd be dead the first day. So the idea of these HIMARS systems and things like this, the idea that you can give all of this high-tech equipment to the Ukrainians when most of their good soldiers that knew what the hell they were doing with anything are dead or captured. Now you're taking poor slobs off the street. Literally, they've gone into nightclubs and basically Shanghai kidnapped people. They used to call it Shanghai. Kidnap people out of nightclubs and put them in a uniform and send them to the front in Ukraine. And you're going to take these people and you're going to train them how to use this high-tech equipment, and then they're going to use it against the Russians. And might I add, in modern warfare, warfare is no longer about, it's not about take this and fire it at the Russians and it'll kill some of them. These types of things have to be used in concert with each other. You have to have, we got this many, we got a tanks, we've got a brigade, tank brigade, we got this, we got that. We're going to hit them with this, then we're going to hit them with artillery. Then the tank brigade is going to come in, then we've got some missiles. You have battle plans, right? And you don't just send someone with a gun to shoot blindly into the forest. You have battle plans and intelligence, and you put together a battle plan. I mean, this is complicated stuff. And they're just like, yeah, we're going to send them some of our newest howitzers, and they'll fire them at the Russians and kill some Russians. It's absurd. You don't have enough time to teach to people these complicated electronic things so they can use them properly. If they get out on the field and they fire at one time, the Russians' radar systems are going to pick out where the fire came from and blow them to hell anyway. The odds are the Russians have such intelligence. Now what we're finding is a lot of this stuff gets shipped in, put in a warehouse, shipped into Ukraine, put in a warehouse, and then there's a missile strike on the warehouse and the stuff's blown to pieces. Not that they care, because a lot of this is about money anyway. So they just send some more. But the whole thing is a fraud. It's managing a narrative to the American people. It's saying we're sending them equipment and that's helping them to fight the Russians when it isn't. It is keeping the American people from going to the streets and saying, what the hell are we paying this for? Why is our economic why is our economic well-being and our standard of living being destroyed for this? So you can have your neoliberal world order, whatever the hell, rules-based international order. Got nothing to do with me. It doesn't benefit me. It hurts me. And so now all they have left is a narrative. And at some point, you think Afghanistan was bad when people were hanging on the fuselages. At some point, this is going to be a collapse to make Afghanistan look like nothing. Collapse. Remember, I used that term. This is how this thing goes. Collapse. They know they got problems. People are like, let me add this. We're talking about the narrative, and the narrative is part of the narrative is and this is a false narrative. Should NATO send in troops? NATO and the US do not have the military wherewithal at this point in time to confront Russia on Russia's border. Look, think about this. The Ukrainians are trained and they're fighting on the ground and they're getting slaughtered. If the US and NATO has never ever faced the kind of integrated networked air defense system that the Russians have. They designed that system specifically for NATO instead of buying enough planes, and they got more planes than anybody in the area, but not worldwide more planes than the US. But in the area, in the European area, they have the superior Air Force. But the bottom line is their plan was they got a lot of planes. We'll have this air defense network and missiles, and we'll be able to defeat their Air Force with our air defense network. So the U.S. you're going to take some beatings. You're going to lose some planes, man, and you're going to lose some. You go decide if NATO decides it's going toe to toe with Russia, it's going to go nuclear because Russia is going to flatten their bases, shoot down so many of their planes, and in all likelihood, some of their carriers will get hit. Some major ships will get sunk with hypersonic missiles within the first day or two. And then what happens? What's the U.S. going to do? Go nuclear, and then we're all dead. So the bottom line is the military knows that. I don't see the U.S. machine saying we want to go. I believe this decision has been made a long time ago. That's what proxy wars are for. That's what the whole, that's what the entire Cold War was about proxy wars. So you don't have to do it yourself because you don't want to take the kind of losses and you don't want to get involved in a nuclear war. So you proxy war. And so now you got this old fossil Biden coming back in, him and his people. And these are the Cold War Democrats thinking that they can relive the glory days of the um, uh, uh, Cold War against the Soviet Union. They're going to come back and they're going to do it. Russia ain't the Soviet Union, and this ain't the Cold War old days. This is different. In China, it was poor as Haiti back then. China ain't that poor no more. And they got some nasty military might themselves and an economic might that is just about to be unmatched on this earth. So, from a perspective of narrative, the U.S. is holding on to a narrative. They're spinning things as best they can, but again, you're going to have, I believe, military collapse. Where the Ukrainians just say we can't fight anymore because we are running out of people. You're going to have economic collapse right now. Well, let me see. Do I have this? Listen to this. Look at this. Oh, you're going to love this one. You're going to love this one. How about this? Ukraine says it needs $750 billion for the recovery plan. $750 billion, $750 billion. You know those crooks want to steal that money. What they have now is a cash cow. One of the reasons that the NATO people, that the U.S. empire is so pissed at Russia for invading Ukraine is because it stopped the cash cow, man. It was an ATM for these people. They had their friends, their sons, their brothers. Everybody's going over there getting paid. These people are eating, man. And now they can't eat anymore. And it's all Putin's fault because he shut down the cash cow. And now, as best they can, they're trying to send money in. And now Ukraine says it needs $750 billion. Ukraine ain't saying that. Bottom line is this. They have told Zelensky, we need you to say you need 750. He ain't going to say it unless he's told to. Say you need 750 billion. Then they'll probably say to the American people, well, we got, in order to stop the Russians, you're not going to get any food anymore. You got to starve and die and turn into skeletons. We got to send the entire. So think about this. That is our entire military budget, which is way too high. So now Ukraine's saying, look, what's your military budget? About 750 billion. Well, it's 787. But let's just pair it off to 750. What's your military budget? 750 billion. Ooh, that's high as shit, isn't it? Yeah, man. People are going to starve out there. Yeah, the people are mad. I need it. I need it. Your whole military budget. 750. So you spend that on your military budget. I want a piece of that, and I want another 750. That comes to $1.5 trillion. That's what you're going to pay. Now, do you think Biden don't want to do that in the neocons? Yeah, because they're filling their pockets. And it's a slush fund for these people. And that's where we are. They're mad. Their slush fund is shut off, and now they're just finding other ways. Look. The Ukraine from very beginning. What do you think? Those bio labs, man. They were laundering money everywhere with those bio. But Hunter Biden was eating, man. He was eating heavy, but he wasn't by himself. They were getting big money there. And that's what it is. It's a big slush fund. And now that there's a war, there's just a different manner. The way they could get money then is different than the way they can get money now. And so now they have to spin it. One of the reasons to spin it is to keep dragging the ATM out. When this war is over, the ATM closes. What the hell are they going to do? What country are they going to invade next? They got $1.3 trillion out of, it took them 20 years to get like $1.3 to $2 trillion out of Afghanistan, didn't it? So what are they doing now? They're trying to find a way to get that 1.5 trillion now, because this thing's going to shut down on them soon. They ain't got 20 years. They got to get that $1.5 trillion now. So now they're like, yeah, 750 billion. Yeah, that's what they need. Well, Americans need food, baby milk. They need to be able to pay their rent and their mortgage. They ain't interested in that. So the question is, do the American people have enough sense to wake up? I don't think that they do right now, but that could happen. Do the German people and the same European people that have been running around like dumbasses with a bunch of blue and yellow flags waving them, flag waving idiots, saying, yeah, the Russians can't play soccer with us anymore or wrestle because they're Russian, and they can't play tennis with us anymore. They can't sing. They can't direct choirs or direct orchestras, none of that stuff. These people When people say something that dumb, those people deserve what they get. However, there's a lot of hardworking people in Europe that don't deserve it. A lot of honest, hardworking people that are just trying to feed their families that do not deserve what they got coming and what they're going to get. That's the thing. Same with Americans. There's a lot of hardworking, honest Americans. And you know who gets it worse? The poor. The people that have the least. They have the least say, and they're going to get hurt the worst. But guess what? In Europe, everybody's going to be poor. So I guess everybody's going to get hurt the worst. So I guess I'll end up saying this. I've covered the media narrative collapsed. The kinetic war, Russia wins, and there's winning, they ain't going to stop winning. And economic collapse, total absolute collapse for the EU and partial collapse for the US. But the US can make it, but it's still the US also, it's having a very much a cultural collapse. There's a cultural collapse here. And when I say cultural collapse, I don't mean the culture of the people. I mean the culture of the elite ruling class. The culture of the elite ruling class in the US, in the West, has become unbearable for a lot of people. It has become, even for people like me, I'm a left-leaning progressive person. However, there is a very uncomfortable focus on sex. Right? I mean, we've got this stuff like now where literally they've had these things where they've got drag queens who are in elementary schools, like kids' schools, like half naked, reading to the kids. Right? Look. Let me put it to you like this. I don't think you should have strippers who aren't drag queens. If somebody said, what are we going to do? Hey, here's a plan. Let's bring strippers to the local elementary school. No, that's unacceptable. We don't should I don't care how good they look. Now, don't get me wrong. When I was in elementary school, I'm going to tell you, if I was in 5th or 6th grade and they said we're bringing in strippers, I'd have been like, hey, let's go. But I was a kid. I didn't know. But I knew girls looked good and I liked them, so I wouldn't have been mad. I'm just saying, the bottom line is this. That's unhealthy. You shouldn't bring strippers. You shouldn't bring drag queens. You shouldn't have any sexually related stuff that your society is literally putting, let's say the kids. There was a video going around with this drag queen holding hands with a little kid, and the kid was going around like putting dollars or something to the drag queen stuff. Look, it doesn't have to do with drag queens. That shouldn't be happening. A 6-year-old kid, this shouldn't be happening with strippers, with female strippers, drag queens, none of it. There's an unhealthy, very, very unhealthy focus on things of a sexual nature that is happening, and it's coming from the top down. It's coming from the media. It's coming from the entertainment industry. And it's like, hey, what are you going to do? Hey, let's have some drag queens and strippers. Go to the old elementary school. That's a great idea. Your society is you got problems in your society. You have cultural issues in your society when it gets to the point where strippers or drag queens or anyone who's dressed in a sexual manner is going to elementary schools to read to the freaking kids. I don't want my kid in that elementary school. No, I don't care who they are. If there's people running around in G-strings, then I don't want my kid there, them reading God only knows what to the kid. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And when I have to say, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, the culture has problems. Might I add, you can't go anywhere in America. You see the deal. Hey, what are you going to do? I think, well, let's go see. I think Mickey Mouse is that. Let's take the kids to see Mickey Mouse. Brrr, shotgun, fully automatic weapon fire. You can't go anywhere, or there's some fruitcake hanging out on a building spraying lead. Your country has problems when it has gotten to that point, and it started from the top down. We have the worst leadership, and it didn't just start. Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden. We have been progressively, I don't know, I'm not saying progressively worse. We've been just as bad the whole time. Lying pirates. Americans think that they are on a luxury liner and they're on a pirate ship. Lying, thieving pirates. And most of their lies are told to their own people, because if the American people actually knew the motivations, actually knew the reasons that their country was doing the things that it does, if the American people even knew what their country was doing, they would oppose it. Because American people aren't as bad as people want to make us to look. Oh, the Democrats are a bunch of evil people. Oh, the MAGA people are all evil. In whatever side you're on, the other side is evil. Americans aren't all that evil. They're not evil people by any stretch of the imagination. And if given the truth, they would make a reasonable decision. Overwhelmingly, if you put it to the Americans, do you want to invade country X? Americans that overwhelmingly would say no. You get some idiots who are, yeah, let's invade them and take their shit. Hey, go America. Sure, you get some of that. But overall, you would never get an invasion because most Americans would say, nah, most Americans would say, hey, man, I'm trying to do something with my farm. I want cheap gas. I want to take the family out in an RV. I want to build a pool. I want to build an addition. I want to get married and have kids. I want to have 2.5 kids in a minivan. They want a life, a normal life. I want to smoke some weed, drink a brew, go fishing. Americans want a life. But instead, we got a flock of insane psychopaths running this, and they ain't interested in your life. So the bottom line is, hopefully, at some point, the people will wake up. History tells us that people have woken up time and time again in various types of revolutions. We will hope that whatever comes is not violent. We will hope that we don't get to some kind of nuclear war. And if we do, we can't control that. We're all done anyway. So there's no point talking about that. Look, here's the bottom line. In theory, the U.S., this country could be hit. I mean, this planet could be hit by an asteroid and we could all die. Some star could go supernova and gamma rays could go flying through the universe and rip our entire atmosphere off and we could all die. There's no point worrying about dying. You could have a heart attack right now. I could just be talking and drop dead. What would you know? I've had a friend I was playing basketball with years ago. We were playing ball. Every Sunday morning we played basketball. And I looked and somebody said to me, I won't mention the guy's name. Somebody said, hey, stop playing. And I looked over him and somebody said, he ain't playing. The guy was 45. And we went over there and he dropped dead of a heart attack. He was dead. They tried to revive him. He didn't make it. So there's no point in worrying about nuclear war or dropping dead of a heart attack or getting hit by an asteroid or gamma rays. That doesn't matter because you can't control, you can't control the day you're going to die. It's going to happen, but you can't control that. So there's no point getting into oh my God, are we all going to die of nuclear war? We're all going to die. So that ain't an issue. Let's talk about life and how this happens and what do we do next and what do the people do? And I think that truly, I believe this. Today is July 5th. Next July 5th, you'll be looking at a very, very different world. That this is the birthing of something very different. When you look at the BRICS, when you look at what's happening with Russia and China and Brazil and India, and now South Africa's joining, and now it looks like Brazil is, when Lula most likely wins, is going to join. Let's not forget, Brazil is the 5th largest and 5th most populous country in the world. This BRICS is, Iran's joining, and they're going to come up with a currency to challenge the dollar. Next year, this time, Olaf Scholz will be out. A lot of these other governments will have fallen in Europe, will have fallen. By the time that winter goes through the hell that the people in Europe go through, they're going to have a different temperament come next year. They ain't going to be running. I'll put it like this. They're not going to be running around with a bunch of damn blue and yellow flags. Yay, we got to stop the Russians like a bunch of lugheads. Yay, we got to stop the Russians. We can't allow them to play tennis with us. That'll show the Russians. Yeah, okay, yeah, that'll show the Russians. Let's see how you like it in November, December, and January. Come this time next year, we'll be looking at a very, very different world. A very, very different world, I think. And if, in fact, the world changes so that the United States is no longer the hegemon, which it has already changed, so we know that, and there's some level of transition, if the American people wise up, if the people wise up and understand that democracy is bottom up, democracy is the masses ruling. The EU is fundamentally undiplomatic. Why? Because the EU was put together by the elite ruling class. NATO was put together by the elite ruling class. They are fundamentally undiplomatic. I'm saying democratic. I'm saying diplomatic, I mean democratic. Why? Because democracy itself is bottom up. The people put together the government. The people have some say in their government. And let me ask you this. How can you tell if a country is diplomatic? I keep saying diplomatic. What the hell? Democratic. The evidence is in the outcome. The outcome tells you whether it's democratic, right? So in a democratic country, right, the governance is in a manner that the government acts on behalf of the people and is responsive to the electorate. You've got fair governance that is responsive to the electorate. That is the output of a democratic nation, right? Of a democratic government. The output is the big thing is responsive to the electorate. We now can clearly see that the United States government is in no way responsive to the electorate because they're saying the electorate has to suffer as long as they got to suffer so that we can maintain our elite order in this world. We've got Olaf Scholz's and Mario Draghi's and Macron's and Bojo's saying, look, screw the people. Look, you poor bastards are going to have to suffer like hell. But, look, trust me, number 10 Downing Street ain't going to be short of seafood and fine wine. Trust me when I tell you the old Bundeswehr ain't going to be nobody with a distended, swollen belly who's cold and hungry who's running the German government. The elite ruling class are saying to the people, screw you, it's time for you to suffer so we can do what we're told by our masters in Washington, D.C. and Foggy Bottom. It's time for you to learn the truth about this thing. And the truth is, we are colonies of the U.S. empire, and the U.S. empire tells us to crash this economy, and that's what they told us to do, and you gonna get crashed. Live with it. So the update is, I guess, complete. And the question, will the people of Europe wake up enough? Well, one thing people learn from is pain. So let's see about that. Well, we got a couple people here. We got a couple super chats. Let us look. Thanks, Garland. You're on fire. Oh, man. Thanks a lot there from, hey, that looks, well, there's a Z there. I don't know what the hell it is, but there's a Z. But thanks a lot. Certainly appreciate that. Look, I appreciate the super chats for those of you who can help keep this channel going. Super chats are appreciated. My Rockfin, I'm gonna go to that for in a second because I got some people who have made donations. Rockfin, you can do tips. Don't forget in the show notes, I have patreon.com. I've got my PayPal information is simply there. You can use my email address, garlandin@gmail.com. Oh, you know what I need to do? I need to put my Cash App info up there too. And of course, you can on Rockfin, make sure you go to Rockfin, you become a member. You can also become a subscriber on Rockfin for $9.99 per month. That allows you to see all my premium stuff and anybody's premium stuff on Rockfin, rockfin.com, ROKFIN.com/Garland Nixon. I appreciate everybody that can do that also. Let's look up. We got another super chat. Let's see what we got here. Raphael A says, absolute fire tonight. Thanks a lot, Raphael. Any more super chats? I don't see any, but it could. It could. I'm going to keep looking because I got a lot of good friends here. People are awesome. I don't see any more super. Oh, here we go. Taro Man Harris says, love the Shotokan t-shirt. That's right. Shotokan is my style. Shotokan is my style. And my doggone instructor, who was, he's awesome, Master Vimy Grayson, and Vimy was injured. He actually knocked his, he got injured playing basketball of all things, got his doggone shoulder out of socket, and he says he'll be prepared. So come July here this month. So come within the next couple of weeks, I will be chopping and boom, ready to go. How about that? I'm going to enjoy myself, except my kicks, man. Let me tell you something about, Orama Spilsbury, super sticker. Thanks a lot, Orama. Appreciate that. Appreciate everybody that's a part of this thing. Here's something interesting about Garland. Interesting. I am like one of the least flexible people ever. I am not flexible. I mean, you know how people could like do the, what do they call the Indian sit where you cross your leg? I can't do any of that stuff. I'm so inflexible. So my kicks, I can't like kick high. I have to, all my kicks are like kneecap and lower because I'm not flexible. I can kick hard. And oddly enough, my chiropractor said, well, Garland, there's different kinds of makeups and different kinds of bodies, and you are yours, whatever it's called. You're not flexible, but you got really, very, very, very powerful joints. And so my joints are strong. That's true. I've never had joint. I played full court basketball, and I only stopped because of a back injury until I was about upper 50s, playing full court. And which I'm say that like it was 20 years ago, wasn't long ago. But at any rate, and I had to stop because of my back, but I never had played basketball in high school, played in junior college, played most of my life. I was playing in 3 leagues, 2 and 3 leagues a week, all winter long, played basketball all the time. I have never had any knee injuries, not a swollen knee, not a twisted knee, not a nothing knee, nothing. How many people do you know that? I got, but of course I'm not flexible at all. So I got off but I like to talk about a little bit of anything. So let's go. All right, let's see. When do you think the West will come to their senses? You know, it depends on what you mean by the West. Keep in mind something. What we're talking about is the U.S. empire and NATO and their colonies, which are Canada, Australia, and Europe. Those are the colonies. Those are the extension of the United States empire, right? And come to their senses. Keep in mind something. You got to look at it 2 ways: the people versus the leadership, the elite ruling class. The elite ruling class is done. Their culture is evil. Their culture is psychopathic. Their culture is narcissistic, and their culture is in the process of collapsing. But I have some faith in the people, and I think the people are slowly coming to their senses. I think the Ukraine thing is waking a lot of people up. I think COVID woke a lot of people up. There are a lot of people who are going along who I know people who are like, yeah, this mandate. Wait, they're mandating people, they got to do, yeah. So a lot of things happen in COVID. So there are things, you know, it's like you can push things too far to wake people up. So they're pushing things so far, I think, when it comes to a lot of stuff, that they're waking people up themselves. Super sticker for Rolo Cat. Thanks a lot, Super Sticker. I really appreciate the Rolo Cat for the super sticker. Let me look on Rockfin. Oh my gosh, we got some people on Rockfin. Let's talk to some of my friends on Rockfin. We've got I'm Craig has given me a tip. Thanks a lot. Certainly appreciate that. We've got Bio Digital Goblin. Certainly appreciate that. We're going over here. We got Jay Cryer with a tip. Thanks a lot, Jay Cryer. JVB says, you sure know how to dish it. Thanks, Garland. It's so important to flush this out. Thanks a lot. I'm just running off at the mouth, man. I'm just running off at the mouth. Thanks for your input, says John T. Thanks a lot. And of course, Chicken Patty. Chicken Patty. We love Chicken Patty here. She is the official person. She's in Greek, you know, they named Athens after the Greek goddess Athena, who was literally made from the head of Zeus, right? But at any rate, well, Chicken Patty is our Athena. She is our Greek goddess of this show. She is the official Greek goddess of this show. That would be Chicken Patty. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks a lot. Of course, Chicken Patty. Thanks all. Oh, somebody says no picture. Okay, I got picture. Okay, it just took a little while. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. I'm tired. My God, I've been on for an hour and 20 minutes. Well, I've been running all over creation for the last couple of days. Thank God I didn't go to any 4th of July events, because the way bullets are flying these days, I might not be here alive if I did. Thanks a lot, everybody. I am back. Don't forget to again, Patreon. If you can do $1, $3, $5, or $100 a month on Patreon, I appreciate it. If you can do something on PayPal to help keep the channel going, certainly appreciate that. And garlandin@gmail.com. That's all in the show notes. Everybody, smash the like button. I got like 500 people watching it. Hopefully, I will have at least a minimum of 500 likes tonight. And last but not least, I gotta have 500 people. If you're not on my Rockfin channel, rockfin.com, ROKFIN.com/Garland Nixon. Just keep an eye, remember, they could shut me off of this any day. This is too much truth happening here. Too much truth happening here. I could get thrown off of YouTube at any given day. If you go on Rockfin and you see, I'm sorry, Garland Nixon has been thrown off because he's a Russian bot, just go to Rockfin. If you come on YouTube and you see that, go to ROKFIN, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. And guess what? You got the same thing. Everything's good to go because I'm putting everything on both of them. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to the chicken patty, who is the Athena of this broadcast. Peace. I'm out.